Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to give it another minute here to let folks dial in, and then we will get started. Thanks again for joining. Just giving it a couple more seconds here for folks to join in. The numbers are going up. All right. Let's go ahead and kick it off. Good afternoon. Good morning. Thank you all for joining. Hopefully everybody is back from their Super Bowl sick day and well rested. We have a fantastic topic and format today with two wonderful speakers. We're going to be talking about AI and AEC, which is a very hot topic, and specifically speaking to strategies for business development and marketing when it comes to AI. And this is going to be a bit of a fireside discussion feel. We're really hoping for some engagement from you as the audience through some polls, and hopefully everybody is ready to get their participation points. In the lower corner of the Zoom console, you'll see the Q&A button. Please submit your questions as we go. We'll address those towards the end, but we also have opened up the chat console as well for some questions where we may prompt you for some input and some creative responses to some of the polls that we're going to be presenting. But most importantly, I want to call out that there will be a recording sent out after the webinar, so no fret, no concern. We will send out a copy of this. And without further ado, my name is Derek Croson. I head up partnerships here at OpenAsset, and I'm going to be facilitating today's session, going to be keeping our speakers on topic, on track, and hopefully on time, and leaving room for that Q&A. But I want to turn it over to our speakers to introduce themselves as well as their organizations. So Akshay, take it away.
Thank you, Derek. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Akshay Mahajan. I'm Executive Vice President of AEC at Unanet. I've been in B2B software technology as a profession for more than 2 decades. Oh my God, I'm aging myself now. I've been in various roles in technology. My passion is to solve business problems using technology. And in the last 5 years, I have been with the AEC industry, working with a company named Unanet, which is focused on providing ERP and CRM software for AEC firms. Many of you on the call today are customers. This ability for us to use this time to share some insights, I'm looking forward to spending time with you today.
Hey, I'll take it from here. I'm Jason Janicki, CEO of OpenAsset. For those who don't know, OpenAsset's a digital asset management system designed for AEC professionals. So we help you centralize your AEC assets, create more proposals, and hopefully win more business. I have personally been in B2B software for over 20 years. The last 13 of which here at OpenAsset. I'm based out of our New York office. I'm across the river today. It's a snow day. I'm hoping my kids don't walk in here. But my background is very customer-centric, product-centric. That's the side of the house that I cut my teeth in and I'm really passionate about. So really excited about this conversation today, to hear from AEC marketers, business development folks, to have this conversation about AI and product and what Unanet's doing, what we're doing, what we're hearing. So yeah, this is exciting. Let's get it started, Derek.
Awesome. Thank you both. And hopefully there's no incoming snowballs, Jason, onto your screen. Okay, let's jump in. Let's start with just kind of the state of AI. And first, we'll just start with kind of an industry agnostic point of view. A quote or a stat from G2 stating that across all 26 high-level software markets, AI has experienced the fastest growth, and it's more than 2 times the growth of the second fastest market, which is design. So in this statistical report, they had design, AI, HR, marketing, security, and AI obviously at the top. No major surprise given that all the news and conversations and social media posts regarding AI of recent. But this is just a very compelling stat from G2 by way of go-to-market partners. Taking that a step further, now if we just look at industry specific, so AEC, and we take a look at what the Zweig group has posted, 80.5% of AEC professionals plan to use digital and tools, which includes AI. And I think we're going to continue to see that number tick up. We know that we've seen kind of this digital transformation in AEC over the recent years, especially ever since COVID hit. But AI, I think, is really going to move that needle. But there's still some apprehension, and those are some of the things that we're going to talk through today. And then one layer further, if we examine kind of the back office functions that we are focusing on today, that being kind of the marketing, the business development, currently available AI technology can automate approximately 25% of each marketer's day. And that's what the Zweig group is claiming and the statistics that they've thrown out. So really compelling. That includes the sales and proposal staff. So as you can think of, there's a lot of tasks that we all have to do day in and day out. Where can we experience some of those short wins to gain back some of that time? And we'll converse on some of those. But as we set out kind of in the promotions for this, one of the objectives is to talk about, where are we in AI in our AEC world? Where is it going? And at this moment, we want to ask the group and the audience, from your perspective, a couple questions. So the first one is, are you currently using AI to optimize any part of your business development or marketing processes? Results are coming in. This is a quick group. I like to see this. We'll give it a couple more seconds. Wow, the numbers are skyrocketing. This is really interesting. This is really interesting. Numbers are still moving. I am going to end this poll now. And I do want to share the results here with the group just for a short second, and then we'll jump into our second poll question and discuss both of these at the same time. So sharing the results, we had 4 different options here. I'm actually pretty impressed to see marketing up there at about 34%, and then I'm not as surprised to see the 36% of those that are not currently using AI, because again, there's a lot of questions, and hopefully we can help answer some of those today. So I'm going to stop sharing this one. And this is going to bring us to our second poll question, which is basically the flip of the first one, which is, are you planning to use AI to optimize your business development or marketing processes? Similar responses and response options here. So feel free to chime in. Again, great engagement from the group. Everybody is earning their participation points. I'm loving this. We'll keep it open for a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to end that poll, and I am going to share these results. Hopefully everybody can see this. Wow, so not surprised here that people said yes to both in terms of planning. 76% said yes. So I'm going to stop sharing this, or actually I'll leave this on the screen, and I just want to kick it over to Jason. The results are in. We've had the static metrics, and now we've had our poll questions. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah. Not that surprised by any of them. I mean, I think that there was an interesting study by Deloitte recently that talked about AEC firms as a whole are expecting to see a 25% boost in productivity due to AI. It's the talk right now, right? And so I think some of this comes from it being such a popular conversation and people trying to figure out where they fit within it and what does it mean. And people didn't go to school, at least my generation of people didn't go to school for AI. And there are a lot of folks out there that are trying to figure out what's next and how to incorporate that into their jobs, into their business. And I think that's natural. I also think if we kind of take a step back and we look at the current state of the AEC landscape, that's also driving the interest. So there are more AEC firms now than ever before. Just in the last year, it's increased by about 10%. AEC firms are seeing rising costs. They're having staffing shortages. There's an overall increase in competitive projects. And so all these folks, all these firms are looking for an advantage, a way to be more efficient, insightful, organized, while staying secure. And obviously AI can help with some of those things. So I'm not surprised by it from a software provider perspective, fully aware that this is going to be an expectation moving forward and not just a check a shiny AI box, but to actually engage and add value into certain workflows for people. Compelling workflows that leverage AI is going to be a requirement on the software side. And we had an internal study recently, just because we felt like we're hearing more and more and more about this. And from the second half of last year, comparing it to the first half of last year, we had nearly a 60% increase in client and prospective client conversations, questions, support inquiries, product requests related to AI. So just kind of a huge boom in the second half of last year, just in terms of conversations going on for us. Actually.
Jason, thanks for the perspective. There have been a lot of questions on the chat as well as in Q&A about when we are using the word AI here, are we only referring to generative AI or everything? I just want to clarify that the use of word AI here, we are not restricting ourselves from only generative AI. This is all aspects of the AI. And it's actually a very interesting question because ChatGPT has been the impetus on why we are all talking about AI today. Like AI has been there for the last 10, 15 years, but suddenly in the last 12 months, we are all talking about AI now in many different ways. And ChatGPT has brought in that consumerization of AI that now everybody's like, why can't I have it? It's very interesting as we think about AI in the AEC industry, and these poll answers are really amazing because if you look back in the AEC industry's history of tech adoption, AEC has been, as an industry, laggard in terms of technology adoption compared to standard industries at that time. If you looked back 10 years ago, the percentage of technology spend in an AEC industry was far less compared to any other traditional companies. A poll that was done by Deloitte 5 years ago said AEC is in the bottom 20% of the industries in the North America that invest in technology. That gives you a sense of where it is. But in the last 3-4 years, and I think pandemic has been a tipping point for this, the technology adoption in AEC industries, AEC firms have skyrocketed. And the proof of that is also the answer to this question that you gave. I just want to, reflect back on this. 24% of you said we are either using AI in product business development and marketing, and 34% of you said we're using it in marketing today. That is a pretty decent high number compared to many other industries at this given point of time. So that shows that not only we are talking about using it in the AEC firms, but we are talking about doing that. And then 76% of the people said we are planning to use it. So that covers a majority of the people who are not using today are planning to do that itself. And I think this push towards making use is a really, really good thing to have. If we learn anything from other industries as it comes to AI, if you follow along for the last 6 months, there has been at least 5 large tech companies that have announced they're going to cut their spending and improve efficiency by starting to put AI in there. Google is one of the pioneers around that aspect of that itself. And I'm using that as an example of what we should be thinking in AEC firms as we go forward. In order for you to be able to take advantage and say you want to use these tools, the executives are going to ask the question, in order to fund it, where the cost is going to come from. So being proactive about thinking about the use cases and how can it actually either generate more revenue or create more efficiency is going to be the key as we go from here.
Fantastic. I think those are both tremendous insights, and thank you both for sharing. I'm going to stop sharing that poll question now, but don't worry. We have 2 more poll questions for the group, and we're going to get there now. So poll question number 3, which I am going to kick off, is, talking about what do you see as the biggest challenge for AI and AEC over the next 5 years? Now, we've preset some of these, predefined some of these options. Also, this is where the chat comes into play. If you've got some thoughts, feel free to submit those in chat. We'll be monitoring those and trying to pick those up as well. Again, participation coming in quick here, coming in quick. We've got a lot of folks putting in some of these thoughts, and I am going to go ahead and end this poll, and I will share these results. Let's let these sink in for a little bit. I'll let everybody digest. So data privacy and security, 40%, data quality and accuracy at 44%, and talent and skills gap as a challenge at 13%. And then it looks like some folks had submitted things in chat as well. I'm going to stop there. And then again, very similar to what we did before, we've now got another poll question on what do you see as the biggest opportunity? So just flipping the script. We know there are some significant challenges. Where do you see the biggest opportunity in front of your teams and the folks that you work with? I'm loving to see this engagement. The polls are coming in. Okay. So let's go ahead and close this one down. We do have a front runner here as well. So efficiency for mundane task at 73%. And then the rest of them kind of go from there. I will leave the opportunities on the screen as we turn this over to our speakers. Let's start with challenges, Akshay. What stands out to you based on what we saw on the screen? And happy to go back and share if we need to see those results again.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can you put up the results for the challenges as we talk through that? One of the biggest challenge that I hear from the AEC industry is around data security. The ChatGPT and similar tools are pretty awesome, but one of the big concern is those are all public tools. The whole way this whole generative AI concept works is you feed data, and that data is what drives the output. The more the data, the better the output is. Now, here is the concern on security. What kind of data as a corporate that you can be pumping into the public domain? Because once you put the data up there, now that's going to be available for everybody else. I'll give you a very interesting example for an AE firm that I recently talked about. 9 months ago, when ChatGPT became a big deal, this AE firm does 70 to 80% of their work through government contracts. So their proposal writing team got an RFI, and they took that RFI and put it on ChatGPT to get an answer on that. Now you can see the red flags going up right there. And I saw in the chat, a lot of you mentioned this also, which is government contracts as your biggest challenge there itself. So from a security perspective, if you're dealing with government contracts, that is something to be very watchful for. There's a lot of confidentiality, as well as you're signing non-disclosure agreements. And it is so easy nowadays to get this data into the public domain and be available for everybody. And you could be looking at risk to your company from litigations and other aspects to it. So you need to be extremely careful with data security and keep it towards within your boundaries.
Awesome. Thank you, Akshay. Jason, what do you have to add on the challenge aspect?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I'm actually, these results are really interesting to me. I have leaned in quite a bit with some clients on the talent and skills gap section, which is interesting because it's a little further down. Maybe I'll just briefly touch on that. But data quality, also a really big one for us. So I've had some really interesting conversations recently with both mid-level and senior level folks within marketing. And they've talked about a couple of different challenges they have with their adoption of AI. One is just the lack of top-down direction. There's a lot of time they're finding it's more bottom up, and that's not going to work. They're finding folks that want to do it, but they're not having kind of the guardrails and the full direction to actually move it forward. If that's, just a little bit of advice, if that's the situation you're in where you don't have the top down or that there is a top down initiative, but you don't have someone project managing that all the way through, that this is a moment to shine, depending on your size company. For you to get involved in that, I'd really recommend that. It shows an initiative, and all your firms are eventually going to be wanting to push this forward. Another challenge that I've heard recently from folks is that it may be top down, but they're getting stuck with kind of mid-level management who either have concerns on it, or maybe they're not savvy enough to adopt it and see the value in it, or they're just too bogged down in the day-to-day to actually give it the time of day to figure out how their team would adopt it. So that's a big challenge, I think, where you're getting overwhelmed with what all the options are that are out there and how to kind of pick and choose. So one of the bits of advice I have, and I take it a little bit from what we've done internally, and we're by no means an internal expert on adoption of AI, but we had a very specific AI initiative that's been going on for the last about 8 months, with real themes and guidelines. Our themes were efficiency and speed and up-leveling and joy. We picked those two, and everything we had to do across each team had to fit somewhere in there. We built surveys for follow-ups. We started off with surveys, then we kept it going throughout the last 7 months to really see a change in behavior. And we've opened up various areas of communication internally as well to see some of those successes. Like I had kind of those mundane things, right? I saw one of our colleagues post about using ChatGPT for their interview notes when they're interviewing candidates. I did it, and it probably saved me 5 to 10 minutes on my first one, and now it's just like built into my process going forward, right? And so that was just somebody coming up with internally a use for it. But I think you have to be able to share those things. So there's the top down, there's the regular surveying of folks internally. That adoption internally really matters. And then you get to the point where you're actually kind of pushing it forward, and you're trying to figure out, are we able to upskill people? How do we do that? How do we invest in doing that upskilling? And also, what are the guardrails for using it for our most highly skilled folks? We have seen very good luck in using AI in the hands of our most skilled employees. And we think that's a really interesting one. It helps unblock them, unstick them, whether it's in content creation, software development, those various bits. So it has taken a kind of a journey for us to get there on the talent and skills conversation and in part. But it's an interesting one, and where we see more and more feedback from clients on it daily.
That's very interesting. There are a couple of comments and questions in the chat about some policies and guidelines that people can communicate to their staff and protect the firm's IP. One of the things I would highly recommend on that is that you need to write this in your policy document. And this is no different than how you must have written in your policy documents or in your employee guidelines, where they can't take your customer data or your firm IP and send it over to somebody else. This is exactly in the same manner. If you have those guidelines, I would just say reword those guidelines to extend AI tools into that. Typically, you would think about people taking a proposal and email it through their personal email ID or putting it into the USB drives. Just think about the AI guidelines and start as simple as just extending your current guidelines about data and extending that to AI tools, which means as a firm, your policy is that no employee can take the data and inject it into any public AI tool like ChatGPT. And that would be a one simplistic step you can take and make that policy. And we at our own company have done that policy in that manner as well, so that we can protect our own data and our customers' data in that manner too.
Yeah, I mean,
This
I
lead,
would just add that the very first thing when adopting one of these AI initiatives and policies is engaging your security folks and having that level of buy-in and guidelines and guardrails from the very beginning. That's pretty critical.
Yeah. And if you extend this whole discussion to the data quality, I am not at all surprised with the results, because this is a common thread that I've heard from a lot of people, where data quality was ranked as the #1 challenge. And the reason for the data quality is artificial intelligence can do nothing without the base data. Let me say that again. Artificial intelligence is useless if it doesn't feed on the data. The simple principle of artificial intelligence is, here is the base data, and I'm going to run algorithms to give you a meaningful output. Guess what? If you do not have data in place, then none of that is going to work. More than data quality, if you take the data quality aspect and go deeper, one of the biggest hindrances to start using any AI technology is, do you today have single source of truth for data? And the definition of a single source of truth is company-wide. Example being, can you say that in your company, here is your single source of truth for all events and activity that your team is doing for external purposes, from business and development purposes? And if the answer is no, then you're not going to be able to harness AI tools to be able to help you with that perspective. And the ability for driving towards single source of truths for these things, single source of truth for project description, single source of truth for proposal writing, single source of truth for pipeline, and so on and so forth. As you start driving towards that and get better at that, that is going to be a starting point to be able to get better out of there. Now, for people who have the single source of truth, if your data quality is not good, that is the second step to work on. So I, as a company, have a single source of truth to be able to record my pipeline, but everybody doesn't record it, or it is not recorded in an accurate manner. That would be the area I would highly recommend people work on, because that is going to be a requirement in order to take full advantage of that perspective.
There was a interesting in one of our customer advisory board sessions, and then event afterwards, there was an interesting use case where somebody was talking about how they've really created a data team, which they didn't have before in their firm, which was all about kind of data quality workflows, because maybe there won't be one, you mentioned one single source of truth, there may be multiple systems, but how are we controlling what that data is, and making sure that we are having quality data, and their solution to it was taking it away from individual teams and having a central team on data quality, which was interesting and probably something that wouldn't have been pushed forward if it weren't for some of these AI conversations.
No, that's really great. And I think, in summary, right, we talked about making sure we're engaging the security team, right? Because security is a large challenge. Extending some of the existing guidelines to incorporate what you already have or in the thought of AI. Akshay, you provided an example of maybe not the best way to leverage AI in that GovCon instance. So a lot of ideas and thoughts around the challenges. And, I think what we want to do now is kind of pivot this conversation a little bit and talk about the opportunities. So I can show the results there as a reminder, but let's now get the input on opportunities. And Jason, do you want to jump in there on this one specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there's the one that jumps out right away is efficiency in mundane tasks, right? And a lot of examples out there of people using that, and I think that's the easiest one to pick up and try out. To be honest, right? You can go in and there's a number of different tools that can help you with that. So yeah, I mean, I think that efficiency on mundane tasks, whether that is, streamlining certain processes, whether that's certain checks that have to go in place in project management, whether that is going through these various steps in awards processes that may be tedious. There's a number of different ways that we can go ahead and improve efficiency. So I'm really not surprised that that's going to be the number one. And again, I think it's the lowest entry barrier to entry as well. Anybody can pick up ChatGPT and some other tools and start making headway there, for sure. One which was an interesting example of a kind of mundane task that somebody brought up recently. They were going through a process of creating proposals, and the proposal had to eventually get back to the leader, the director of the team. It was their sign off on kind of the language used, the vision used, like the branding, like everything, their voice in the proposal. When they started looking at it, they felt like it was a bit kind of generic. We weren't really leaning in a way that was a differentiator. And what they started doing was pumping in details about this opportunity, about this proposal, RFP, and this project into various AI tools, into ChatGPT, into other tools. They took the list of folks that were on the board that were going to make these various decisions on this project. They went through all these different steps, and what it ended up kind of spitting out for them in a way that would have taken them much longer was they started playing around with podcasts and webinars and various things that certain people may have been involved in, and they were able to identify that of some really key people in the decision-making process, see that they were involved in podcasts and webinars and various bits, and take some of that person's language and bring that back into their proposal. So an interesting use case, trying to dig further in a way that you may not have before, and to craft a better proposal, a better chance at winning that bid. So there's lots there, but I'm not surprised that efficiency and mundane tasks are where people are leaning in to start.
No, absolutely. Akshay, what was kind of the most compelling aspect of these responses for you? And we'll cruise through these and then get into some other questions after this.
I think artificial intelligence, since its inception, has been about how do you take tasks that humans are doing again and again, that are repetitive in nature, that are mundane, how can you automate that task? The word automation came much before the artificial intelligence came as well. Artificial intelligence is about taking the automation and putting it on steroids. So it is taking the similar concept, but making it much more natural rather than just input and output mechanisms. The area from an efficiency perspective is great, but I think one of the questions that people were talking about in the chat a lot one of the big challenges to adoption of AI is going to be the cost and benefit. And here is the issue with the cost and benefit, right? And any AEC firm, right? We all in an AE firm or AEC firm, we have the cost, which is to the project, and everything else, which is the indirect cost, which is not to the project there itself. Ability to reduce cost is a smaller lever that you can make in that. And efficiency plays helps you reduce cost. You also need to think about ways in how you can increase revenue and create that as a benefit around that. So one area where AI can help, where we need to think beyond just generative AI and think about more predictive AI, is helping predictive AI provide supports to get us insights and make business decisions better. So one of the difference between a generative AI and a predictive AI is that generative AI software help you create text, help you create, images, it based on the prompts that you're giving. However, a predictive AI is using large structured data repositories to recognize patterns across time so that you can take that insight and start making better business decisions. Here is a very simple example of that. If you can look at your past win data from your historic pursuits that you have pursued, and you can look at a trend which says, we as a firm always lose a bid or a project when it is between a certain size in a certain region and this competitor is in the bid. Knowing that insight from a vast set of data and giving you that insight could help you make an informed decision on no go, maybe on that, or create a better strategy to go after that kind of projects. This is a great example on how predictive AI can actually now not just increase your efficiency, but now get you set for getting better in helping increase your win rate, reduce your cost of pursuit at the same time, and get more benefits from a revenue perspective in that manner. And I think as we go forward, predictive AI is an area where there's a lot of value to gain that most of us and most of the AE firms have still not gained those values. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, there's one interesting question. Oh, there's a bunch of interesting questions. One that came in that's somewhat related is what existing skills are prerequisite for using these tools efficiently? What existing skill set set someone up for success in using these tools? And I think it's really interesting. And one step I would say it's massively overwhelming, all the different areas you could lean into. So I would just say start off with 2 or 3 in your team of kind of areas. And if you're looking for efficiency improvements or whatever it may be, like focus in on some of those key areas that are there. But I would say the barrier to entry is fairly low for a lot of the things that you're going to want to do. A lot of the solutions and tools need to be user friendly, and they need to just be part of a workflow. And rather than, requiring any data science or a background from an end user perspective by any means. And so I think a lot of that is pushed off onto the creator and the developers of those tools. Now, if you're going to do more analysis internally, if you're going to be running across all these different data sets and making your own analysis without use of some external tooling, that the skill level obviously goes much higher. But just wanted to say, I think the barrier for entry on some of these, especially to get started, is pretty low. And it's the tools have to be user friendly to make it so.
No, that's perfect. And thanks for the assessment and kind of the overview based on the inputs. I think it's important to call out, right? Like this is a new world. It's a new kind of evolution. There are going to be challenges, and like Ted Lasso said, taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse. If you're comfortable while doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. So, we're here to try to help out with that, with the insights that we're providing, but just know that it is something that may feel uncomfortable. But with those challenges come a lot of opportunity. So let's push forward. We've got a couple more questions, and then we obviously want to get into the Q&A. We want to be mindful of time. So for this next kind of question, let's just go quickly through this one, Jason and Akshay. So question for the group, what are some of the use cases in addition to the ones that we've already mentioned where you're hearing firms are using AI, and just briefly touch on, that impact and how it's making them competitive. Jason, I know you kind of already provided one. If we have anything more to add, we can. If not, let's move on to the next question, which I think will cover off some of the questions that have popped up in Q&A.
I'll answer
So-
it very quickly. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, actually.
Very quick answer to that question. One tool that I've heard from not lot, I would say 5 AE firms in the last 6 months is Jasper.ai. Jasper.ai is a tool that has been used by AEC firms to write content. Jasper.ai is a enterprise content creation AI-based tool that allows you to take an existing artifact or even start from scratch, but allow you to keep it within yourself. So it is not shared in the public domain, the data. And the second thing it allows you to do is it allows you to create your own brand tone and voice so that you can, when you're writing and producing these kind of contents there. One of the big use case that couple of AE firms are using it for is about writing blog posts, for example. And that is a great way to start using a tool like that.
Yeah, I've got a couple of examples because I know there's been a lot of questions on like give us the name of a few tools, and one that we've got a number of clients using is Beautiful.ai for visual presentations, to the point that we've actually started using it internally. It's faster design, it's easier to incorporate graphs from data sets. It's super fast and slick, and anybody can use it. So Beautiful.ai is an interesting one. We've had clients using DALL-E for kind of like those image creation, Midjourney for image creation we've heard of as well. Schema AI, more on the design side, but we've heard that it's helpful in conjunction with marketing decks. So those are all interesting. There was another one, and I don't remember the name of the tool. It was out there for using AI headshots. So it used to be you needed a professional photographer for headshots, but now you could just take a picture on the phone and from different angles and lighting, and then the tool generates a professional looking headshot for you. So there's lots of things out there. I think some of them kind of don't know what it is until you see them, but like, again, I would lean in on some of those. Does it take a lot of time to create presentations? Why? Maybe there's some tools out there that we should lean in on. Is there, headshots, what a pain that is. Wait a minute, there's tools for that. So those are just a couple of examples that come to mind. And there's a whole bunch on like the social media listening side that we've heard clients using, from Sprout Social to Brandwatch, like a bunch of tools out there that AEC marketers are digging in on.
No, those are great examples on both sides, and I might have to use the headshot one myself, Jason. But I'm going to flip over because I think this is a common theme, and I know there's been some mentions of, can we get a list of these? We can add a list of a few of these tools we've mentioned in the follow-up email. So thank you for putting that through. Also, feel free to submit questions in the Q&A module. We'll get to those here in a couple minutes. But the next question, which I think the answers will be very popular to the audience, is, hey, look, it's here. We know about it. It's not going anywhere. How are the organizations currently investing, and what's on the future roadmap? And if you guys could just take a second to get through that. Let's just be mindful that we do want to save, let's say, 7 to 10 minutes, hopefully, for Q&A, and we have kind of one wrap-up question.
Yeah, sure. No, happy to talk a little bit about roadmap from our perspective. So From the open asset side, we've had some AI tools in the product for a number of years now. We've got, and I'll list out a couple and then talk more about what's on the future roadmap here. So we've got similarity search, which leverages AWS recognition, kind of finds visual similar images in seconds and applies relevant keywords to them. We've got suggested keywords in our system that kind of looks at your images and then makes suggestions on what keywords could be assigned. They don't get automatically assigned right now. We have a content assist tool, which helps in kind of unsticking folks in the creation of project descriptions and resumes. And we've seen this used for folks that really just don't have all of this in one place. We've seen it in a place where you can use it to kind of unstick and add some additional context around the project somebody's worked on. Content assist, and then we also do use AI in some support and documentation. So there's a couple of things that 4 or 5 things that we're already using AI for in OpenAsset, but what's on the roadmap moving forward is really interesting to us. One, again, around search. One is visual search. So based on AEC specific search terms, this is tagless search. This is you upload an image, you're able to then just search on it, find images you're looking for. And if we can, and we're finding good success in our testing, if we can tie that back to real industry-specific AEC terms, and the more specific, the better, the ability to train that model, we're seeing some really interesting results. So visual search, natural language search is one that we think, is really interesting. Think about, I need to create a PowerPoint deck using top projects with, top university projects with XYZ, included, and have it kind of just spit out for you, kind of search your system and spit out. And so we're looking to how we can use natural language in search, but in document creation. Another big one we're looking at, or we are working on right now for Q1 of this year, is facial recognition. So this will help in organizing data. Also helps in security in the sense from kind of like a GDPR standpoint. And, these folks have left the company. How do we get, take out their employee photos? So we are moving quickly on facial recognition. But then so those are a couple of workflows, but in general, we're looking at, how can we leverage AI and all the advantages that it has to make a more engaging workflow for our clients. Not ticking a box that says AI, but actually adding value, doing some things on time to value, getting content in. We talked about, disorganized data or data quality. We're looking at things on data cleansing within OpenAsset, tools that we can help with that for you. And then you get to step further and you're like, what insights can we make? And so that's like a couple of steps down the road once we make sure that people have clean data. So there's a lot there. We're fully committed to it. And we're excited about it. And I'll be honest, a lot of this is driven just by constant feedback from our clients on where they're stuck, and things in the workflow that we could help with. So a lot there. And I know Akshay's got a bunch as well, so I'll pass it over to him.
In the next 3.5 minutes, I'm going to say a lot of things and I'm going to try summarizing it. But one thing I would say aloud before I start talking about that, there is a lot of resources on Unanet available talking about our current and future plans for AI. If you are a current customer, feel free to contact your customer success manager to have a deep dive on that. We'll also be conducting a webinar very soon for our existing customers to talk about all of these AI capabilities in more detail. So watch out for that webinar info in your inbox. Highest level, we have been thinking about at Unanet about artificial intelligence for the last 3-4 years. One of the very first thing we wrote a code on machine learning was a feature in our current product called signature parsing. When you get an email from a contact in your Outlook and you use Unanet CRM for Outlook plugin, We use machine learning to read the signature body of that contact's information and compare that contact's information with the Unanet CRM's contact information and provide you with if that phone number or their title has changed and allow you to quickly change that itself. So that's a use case that not only in the future, but it is available today to use with our AI itself. As we go forward, we think about the AI capabilities in three big buckets from that perspective. Number one is around predictive AI. And I talked about a little bit this at the last time. Second bucket in the category is around data quality aspect of it. And the third bucket is about generating content perspective. So those are the three high-level buckets you can think about: predictive AI, data quality, and being able to generate content. I'll give you examples of each of these things that we are working on as future roadmap items at this given point of time. Number one, we are working on a very exciting project using machine learning and AI, which we are calling WinSmart. WinSmart's vision is to be able to take past opportunity data as well as past pursuit data that you have within the CRM in order to create a score based on various permutation and combination that exists today so that you can get a good starting point from a go no go perspective. This is the example of where if you have won certain kind of pursuits over a period of time or lost certain kind of pursuits, this score will help be able to put that up there. Not only give you that score, our vision is to provide a user experience to make that consumption of that AI capability right in your screen itself, as well as the configurability of that aspect there. Second biggest bullet around this is data quality. One of the issues that we talked about at the top concern to use AI is going to be about how even AI can make the data quality better. So example is not just correct the data after it has been entered, but correct the data as it is getting entered. So example being, if you're creating a new opportunity in CRM and you are creating that as a type of, and you start writing the opportunity name as MSA, knowing the fact that you're writing the name as MSA, we want to be able to take that information and say your type of opportunity should be actually not just a standard opportunity, but more of a parent-child opportunity, so that we can correct the data quality using artificial intelligence right at the start of the data entry process there itself. The third example is around generative AI perspective. Unanet CRM provides you a single source of truth for your project descriptions that you can write yourself as a marketer. Ability to take the information from your ERP system about those past projects and take the data and write a value-based project description as a starting point that can be edited. And the reason for this is one of the big problems that we see here from our clients is, I have 5,000 past projects. I only have bandwidth to write 50 or 100 or 200 of these in a year. It's going to take me 20, 30 years to write all of these past project descriptions. So why can't we take that data and use generative AI to give you value-based project descriptions as a starting point, not publish them, but get ready so that the marketer can then take it and finish that from that perspective. So that's an example of a third category of items there itself. As I mentioned, there is a lot more around each of these areas. We have a vision of taking AI and making it accessible within the AEC firms. One of the challenges that we see with AI tools like Microsoft Copilot, Salesforce, or others, these tools are not specific to AEC firms. They're going to give you ways to do things that are very generic in nature, but never solve the problem of solving like the WinSmart, which is very specific to the go-no-go process within the AEC industry. And so our vision is to build AI tools that the AEC firms can use without having to spend another $500,000 with a developer to actually make it AEC specific.
Wonderful. Thank you for shedding light. I know the audience was interested in what both orgs were doing, and I think it's exciting future on both sides, and obviously we'll figure out how to work together on both of those or on some of those instances. But I think with 6 minutes left let's go ahead and jump into the Q&A, and I'm going to kick it off just kind of with a general question, and then there's a couple questions that I want to jump into. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but the first question is just, in summary, if you could provide one sentence, or maybe not one sentence, two sentences on kind of how to strategize for incorporating AI, what would it be?
Number one, start looking at your existing data and building on your single source of truth within your company. Number two would be make sure you write down the use cases where AI can help you as a company and prioritize the use case based on the dollar that you're going to save or make for the company.
Jason?
I would think about similarly. You need to identify those problems and the ones that are taking the most amount of time. And so we did, I think that's a good project to do and an initiative to do, is to kind of go through and time yourself on some of these, and they may already come out and you may already know them, but I think identifying those up front and looking for some quick wins with AI is helpful, because then it gets the ball rolling. So my thought is simplify it, get a couple quick wins under your belt on it, share your successes, and I think it's going to start to roll a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you both. Next question for the group, and this is a common one, I think, and I would love to get your take on it, is just around authenticity, right? There is this concern, this growing concern, like we could use AI to generate some things, but how do we balance the brand authenticity? We're trying to stay competitive, and we want to separate ourselves from our competition. So how do you keep it authentic, but also use this to make things more efficient?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one, and it kind of depends on what AI you're using. So you need to understand that, and you need to understand where the data source is. So if you're using a closed data source, like in OpenAsset or in Unanet, and then you're able to create content within them that's using your project and your employee and your data, then it's very, it's very possible to continue to maintain that brand authenticity in your voice, and your security to that data there. So I think it's really, really important, step one, to know your data source on that. We've also, think that there's a lot of opportunity in there to use AI within a closed data source to improve upon and check some of that authenticity, check some of the voice, the kind of the brand voice that you may have. There's ways that we can do that moving forward to make you even better at maintaining your brand authenticity. But I think one of the very first things are, what's your data source? Understand your data source, and if it's a closed data source with your data in it, that's a good starting point.
Akshay, do you have any thoughts on kind of the brand authenticity aspect of it? Is there anything you want to add there?
There are a lot of enterprise content generation tools that are available that will allow you to create your company's tone and voice, as well as your own individual author's tone and voice. I would highly recommend that any tool that you use, make sure you are personalizing it from your company tone and voice perspective and using that as a way to generate those content.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see, we've got a couple other questions. Feel free to submit them. We've probably got time for one more. Let's see.
I'll take a question. There is a question that has come up multiple times around the ability to take the existing data and content and how to clean the data up. And that has come up multiple times, and people are asking for ideas on how to do that.
Go for it.
I love it, asking question and answering it too. One of the things about cleaning data up is I would really, really highly recommend deciding how far you want to go back to cleaning your data. A mistake a lot of people do is all data is a good way to start. That is not a true reality. You might see that a data beyond a point of time is not that useful. So don't try to clean up and get your data quality right for infinity part of your data. Define that timeline. Example being, if you want to look at your pipeline data and clean it up, say that in my company's growth, the opportunities that we pursued in the last 3-4 years are very relevant for me to decide my future. So I'm not going to look at all information. I'm just going to hone in the last 3-4 years of data and start cleaning from that perspective. So number one part of the strategy is define your period of time for the data. Number two, take it in small chunks. Take the data and saying, I'm going to do 20 opportunities a month and then clean it up over a period of time to get to a point where the data is cleaned up.
Awesome. We're at the top of the hour, and I know there's a couple more questions in here. People want to know what keeps you guys up at night. Maybe we can address these in a follow-up email in some way, shape, or form. I do want to thank the audience for their attendance and also their engagement. There was a lot of responses, really, really happy, and it really, I think, created a dynamic kind of atmosphere and discussion amongst Akshay and Jason. And obviously, Akshay, Jason, want to thank you both for your time. And if we didn't get to your answer in this, we will circle back in a follow-up with the recording as promised. But once again, thank you guys so much for your time, and reach out if you have questions about AI. We're here to help.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.